From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
An Ohio farm family may have found a new revenue stream. Why it all starts with a dime. Another major ag manufacturer announces a round of layoffs as exporters face a possible bottleneck.
And you cannot have a negative impact on the U.S. livestock industry without also having a negative impact on the U.S. soybean farmer.
What farmers need to keep an eye on as they bring in a possible record crop right now on AgDay.
AgDay is brought to you by Pioneer. Great performance in the field makes Pioneer brand corn #1 in America. For a winning season, it's Pioneer brand corn. Your best years starts here.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. It's a busy time of year for moving ag products out of the country, but it could soon be hampered by a strike. A threatened longshore workers' strike could start on October 1st, impacting shipments out of the East Coast and the Gulf of Mexico. AgDay's Michelle Rook joins me. Michelle, how could this impact our producers?
This would be the first strike since 1977 for the East and Gulf Coast port workers. Now, the good news is it would not impact any bulk grain exports, but farmers don't need any transportation disruptions as they harvest a near to record crop. Plus, there are other sectors of agriculture that could be hurt. Beyond wages, the key dispute for port workers on the coast is the use of automated technology to process trucks at some point, which the union says violates their current contract. Fortunately, transportation officials say this does not threaten bulk grain exports.
Those facilities operate, either they have a different labor union that they work with, or they have their own employees that service those facilities. So those bulk export terminals would not be impacted by any kind of disruption. What would be impacted is those exports that occur via containers.
Steenhoek says those are generally higher value specialty soybeans. USDA data indicates container shipments of beans in 2023 through the East and Gulf Coast ports totaled around 100 million bushels. Now that compares to nearly 1 billion bushels of bulk soybean exports out of the Gulf, the top export region for soybeans. However, there is another indirect effect on grain producers.
As well as we export from the U.S. a lot of meat products and poultry products, and that occurs overwhelmingly by refrigerated containers. And you cannot have a negative impact on the U.S. livestock industry without also having a negative impact on the U.S. soybean farmer.
Plus, Steenhoek says U.S. grain producers can't afford any transportation disruptions at harvest that could threaten their profitability, especially with low water levels on the lower Mississippi. I'm Michelle Rook reporting for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Michelle. It was a rainy weekend for millions of people from Arkansas to Tennessee, along with southwest Georgia and the Florida Panhandle, as the remains of Hurricane Francine moved inland. The storm making landfall on Wednesday along the Louisiana Gulf Coast as a Category 2 hurricane. Now, Francine impacting Gulf oil production with more than 41% of oil production and more than 53% of natural gas production still shut down on Friday. And grain export facilities in several locations were without power going into the weekend. However, officials say there was little damage to the facilities. Now, several Louisiana ports reopened, but with restrictions. Some areas of the country could use some rain as the latest Drought Monitor shows dryness increasing across the country. Meteorologist Jack Van Meter has a look ahead for us.
Taking a look at our new drought monitor, which came out last week. A lot of big changes throughout the country. Unfortunately, those changes are not all positive. A lot of dry environments are starting to form throughout the country. If we go out to our East Coast, we can see that again, it's that severe and even exceptional drought in West Virginia that is starting to make its way north into Ohio. Actually, as we take a look at southern Indiana and Kentucky as well, pretty dry. And as we go out west, same situation as well, as the big drought out in Montana is starting to migrate west to the coast as well. So keeping a very, very close eye on these drought-like conditions throughout all of the country. And check out this beautiful shot. Roger in Iowa says harvest 24 is coming right up. He says this corn crop is mature, just needs to dry out a little more before harvest. Of your forecast coming right up.
NOAA releasing new details about when we could see La Nina return. It says there's now a 71% chance for it to emerge from now through November, saying the tropical Pacific is still in neutral, but nature continues to give signs that La Nina is on the way. And it says it is expected to last January through March of next year. Forecasters predicting it will be a weak La Nina. With La Nina, winter temps are warmer than normal in the south and cooler than normal in the north. C&H Industrial is the latest ag equipment maker to announce layoffs. The company announcing it's laying off 52 employees from its factory in St. Nazianz, Wisconsin. The cuts will take effect in November. The facility makes precision spraying equipment. Now, earlier this year, it was rumored the company was laying off more than 200 workers from its plant in Racine County, Wisconsin, but no WARN notice has been filed with the Wisconsin Department of Workforce Development. Syngenta announcing it's cutting just over 10% of its workforce from its Swiss headquarters in Basel. It says up to 150 jobs will be impacted. The company saying the cuts are due to a, quote, more severe and sustained difficult economic environment. Now, the Chinese-owned agrochemical company employs 60,000 people around the world. It recently reported a 17% drop in sales for the first 6 months of the year. The U.S. House approving several bills regarding China last week. The bills passed would ban Chinese-made drones, including ones from company DJI, a dominant player in the global market. Another would limit China-linked biotech companies from having access to the U.S. market. Another bill would add the Ag Secretary to the U.S. Committee on Foreign Investment, which reviews the national security implications of foreign transactions. Now, some of the measures passed along party lines, with Republicans arguing the need to protect national security. One contentious measure seeks to revive a program to root out Beijing spying in American universities and institutes. The House also narrowly approved an effort to exclude Chinese electric cars from receiving clean vehicle tax credits. The bills all still need Senate approval. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has finalized tariff hikes on certain Chinese-made products. The tariff rate will increase to 100% on electric vehicles and 50% on solar cells starting later this month. It will also go up to 25% on electrical vehicle batteries, critical minerals, steel, aluminum, face masks, and certain other things. Tariff hikes on other products, including semiconductor chips, will take effect over the next 2 years. China is expected to retaliate by increasing tariffs on U.S.-made goods. And more tariff news that could directly impact growers. Proposed duty rates on imported herbicide 2,4-D. The National Corn Growers Association and American Soybean Association have expressed frustration with the Commerce Department recommendation to impose preliminary countervailing duties. They're concerned the plan will drive up costs for farmers. It follows a petition by domestic producer Corteva Agriscience. It asks for anti-dumping measures on imports from certain foreign suppliers. A wild week for markets has farmers asking what's next. We'll discuss it with Alan Brugler coming up. And later, tracking the latest trends in the equipment market, both old and new. Machinery Pete has the numbers straight ahead.
Introducing Unscripted with Tyne Morgan and Clinton Griffiths. Real, raw, and entertaining. A new episode is available every Friday on Farm Journal's YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.
John Deere has agreed to pay almost $10 million to settle Securities and Exchange Commission charges. It's over a subsidiary of the company in Thailand. Now, Reuters reporting it was alleged the subsidiary offered massage parlor services and other improper gifts to win business in Thailand. It involves a company called Workin Thailand, which is a subsidiary of a German road construction company acquired by Deere back in 2017. Now, it's alleged by the SEC the company plied members of the Royal Thai Air Force and the agencies responsible for the country's highways and rural roads with cash, sham consulting fees, and gifts. But the alleged misconduct took place before Deere had fully integrated the company into its compliance program. Now, Deere saying in a statement, the allegations represent a clear violation of its policies and ethical standards, and that the people involved in the matter are no longer working with the company. And Campbell's Soup officials want to drop soup from its corporate moniker. The company has been around for 155 years, but leaders say there's more to Campbell's these days than just soup. So It wants to be known as the Campbell's Company. Campbell's owns a variety of snacks and foods that include Goldfish, Pepperidge Farm, and Snyder's of Hanover. Shareholders will have the final say on whether the name change becomes official. Corn and wheat climbing back into the green on Friday, while soybeans could use some support. Michelle Rook is back with more on what traders will be watching this week in markets now.
Grains closing mixed last Friday. Alan Brugler is joining us with analysis. And Alan, let's talk about the wheat market. It was kind of the leader. Talk a little bit about what pushed that. Was that weather, or is that market just in the process of trying to bottom?
Well, I think we're trying to bottom. If you look at the Chicago chart, you had a 9-year cycle low back in 2016. You've got an uptrend line since then. We spiked that a couple of months ago, but now we've gotten back above it. You got that support line's around 545 now for nearby Chicago. So technically, you're trying to put in a seasonal low here.
So corn was also higher. Was it just following wheat, or were we still maybe digesting the lower ending stocks in the WASDE report?
I think having wheat higher helped, of course, but USDA did tighten up the ending stocks a little bit. They raised the yield, but it didn't result in higher ending stocks because of what they did to the old crop. They bumped up the ethanol and exports for old crop. So this was not as bearish of an outcome as what the market had feared. And now we're looking at basically a 3-week uptrend on the continuation chart.
So the soybeans had a little bit of a rally out of the WASDE. It looked like maybe a sigh of relief, but couldn't extend on Friday. Was that just that we ran up into some chart resistance again?
Yeah, we're still having some resistance. Problem after a big slide like we've had is that there's several layers of resistance you've got to chew through going back up.
And now with the WASDE out of the way, we start a new week. What are we going to be focusing on in the grains? Is it going to be about harvest reports? What?
You'll get a window here where we're trying to figure out if the harvest yields match up with USDA's forecasts. One thing we have to remember is the September forecast did use objective yield plots. The USDA was showing us ears per acre, which were down quite a bit from last year. That puts a big emphasis on grain weight per ear, which gets into kernel fill, which gets into these dry conditions I was alluding to. So, yeah, we'll be wanting to see what the actual yields are.
Thanks so much. Ellen Brugger with ENN Economics, and we'll have more AgDay coming up. Watch Markets Now with Michelle Rook on the Farm Journal YouTube channel, keeping you updated throughout the day on the markets at the open, midday, and close. Find out what moved the markets today and what to expect the market to do next.
Welcome back. Take a look at our temperature outlook. As we can see, much of the country is actually going to be seeing those above average temperatures for this time in the month. Absolutely unbelievable how warm a lot of the country is actually going to be in September of all time. Now you got to remember, September is that month where we're kind of battling the seasons a little bit. We have summer, which is fully hanging on, especially for our Great Lakes states and parts of the Midwest, and also winter time coming down from Canada as well. As we can make our way out east, or I should say west, as we can see cooler temperatures are taking place right around Salt Lake City, and it all has to do with our jet stream pattern right now. That trough and ridge relationship, massive ridge of high pressure building for the middle of the week. And again, here is that trough that is starting to make its way, bring down actually cooler temperatures to much of the West Coast. As I play this in action, we saw that low kind of split off, and it's going to kind of ride this ridge out. So a lot of the northern part of the country, from the Dakotas out to Minneapolis area, are going to be dealing with some rain to start off and actually end the week as well. And that's exactly what we're showing here in our precipitation outlook. It's above average amounts of precipitation, especially for the Dakotas and out into Minnesota as well. And also, again, just the northern ridge, and then where that high pressure ridge, we're looking at a massive deficit as well. This precipitation down here in the southeast actually going to be attributed to what is actually left of Francine, is going to make its way off the coast there, dumping just an incredible amount of water as she does make her way throughout the thing. Here's our cities for the week. Bainbridge, Georgia, 79 degrees low. of 69 degrees, dealing with some thunderstorms today actually. Defiance, Ohio, mostly sunny, high of 87 degrees, low of 56 degrees. And finally, Selma, California, mostly sunny conditions throughout the day, dealing with a high of 75 degrees and a cool low of 51 degrees.
There's been a slump in equipment sales for all but one class of tractor. We have the latest numbers next. And later, when a dime isn't worth a dime, how one Ohio farm family's investment could pay off big time in the country. Four-wheel drive tractor sales continue to be a bright spot right now when it comes to farm equipment sales. The Association of Equipment Manufacturers reporting that sales have increased more than 5% year to date, but the news isn't good for other tractor sales, with two-wheel drive under 40 horsepower down 15%. Under 100 horsepower tractors down more than 9%, and 100 plus horsepower down 8%. Now combine sales, they're down almost 18% so far this year. Now Machinery Pete says he's starting to see a new trend in the used equipment market. He joins us this week with the details.
Well folks, just recently here, I've started to notice our auction sale price data showing a little bit higher auction prices coming from farm auctions, so retirement and estate auctions, versus straight online consignment or dealer auctions. Now, it used to be that way for most of the first 30 years I've been collecting prices, but then of course 21 to early 23, the market was so hot, didn't matter what type of auction, prices were just high. Now, an example of a really strong recent farm auction was just September 12th, online farm retirement auction in Sisseton, South Dakota by the Steffes Group for Les Heineke. And Les had a pair of 2019 Case IH Steiger 540 quad tracks, 1,256 and 1,215 hours. They went for $357,000 and $326,000. Now the 357, that's the fourth highest auction price ever on a 540 quad track. But the only three higher, they were all 22 and 3 models. And again, Les's was a 19 model, and the previous high on a 19 model 540 quad track was $328,600 4.5 years ago on an auction in Faribault, Minnesota. Now, Les also had a super sharp 2012 New Holland T8 360 with 3,087 hours on it, so for $121,000. Third highest auction price ever there, folks, on a T8 360 with over 3,000 hours. And really not that far from the highest ever, $130,750 back in January of 23 on an auction in Charleston, Missouri. And how about Les's Combine, this 20 model Gleaner S98, only 515 SEP hours on it, went for $320,000. Folks, I've seen over 2,500 Gleaner Combines sold at auction over the last 35 years, and $320K, that's the highest I've ever seen. The previous high was $307,250 on a big iron auction back on October 6th of 21 out of Moscow, Kansas. That was a 19 model S97 with only 187 SEP hours on it.
All right, thanks, Pete. Well, a dime wouldn't get you very much at a used equipment auction, unless it's this one, how an Ohio farm family made a wise investment in this rare coin. Next.
Machinery Pete on Ag Day is brought to you by Firestone Ag. Firestone Ag now offers Bridgestone tractor tires, the ultimate lineup of tires engineered to deliver enhanced wear life, durability, and ride comfort on the road. To learn more, talk to your local certified Firestone Ag dealer.
You might want to check your drawers, couches, or that bucket of change you keep in the house. Three sisters who grew up on an Ohio dairy farm could be in possession of a dime that is worth a whole lot more than just 10 cents. That's because a dime depicting President Franklin D. Roosevelt is missing its S mint mark. The dime was minted back in 1975 by the San Francisco Mint and was included at the time with a proof set that originally sold for $7 a piece to collectors. Millions were sold, but it was later discovered that just 2 of the 1975 proof dimes didn't have the S mint mark in the set. The three sisters recently inherited the dime that was kept in a bank vault. They say it was purchased by their mother and brother over 40 years ago for just over $18,000. As you can imagine, that was a big buy for a farm family at the time, but the daughters say their parents thought of it as a safety net. A company specializing in currency expects the rare coin to bring more than $500,000 when an online auction ends in October. The sisters wish to remain anonymous. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Griffiths. Have a great day.